Hello, hello. Welcome to a very, very special live that I wanted to do because I was scrolling on Netflix and then I saw this show called Sirens. And I put it in the back of my mind like, oh, I'm going to watch it because obviously the name of my ladies, I affectionately call them the Sanctum Sirens inside of the badass Sanctum. So I was like, oh, that'll be so cute. I'm going to watch Sirens because that's what we're called in the Badass Sanctum. But I forgot. And so, funny enough, my daughter was like, oh, mommy, have you seen this show, Sirens? It's really good. And I was like, oh, I have not seen it, but it was on my list to watch. Now, I didn't watch it because I wanted to be entertained, but I watched it because I wanted to see what does the world really think about what a siren is and what a siren does. Like, how do they portray sirens? How she moves and how she's feared, how she's framed. And so, honestly, it made me pause a little bit because some of it felt familiar, but then some of it kind of felt like completely disconnected from the woman that I've become and how I view Sanctum Sirens. So, we're going to get into it a little bit, talk about the actual show and talk a little bit about how what the truth really is now about our kind of power as modern day sirens. Okay, so I'm getting my notes together over here, and I want y'all to take some notes. If you've seen it, put like a S in the comments if you've seen it. Uh-oh. And then let me know your thoughts about it. Favorite parts, just all of the things. So me and some of the ladies inside of the society, we've been talking about it, chatting about it a little bit inside of there. And it was really interesting. It was very interesting. But okay, let's just get into it. All right. Um, so a little bit of the breakdown. Okay, so let's talk about the characters. Now I definitely need my notes for this because when you get over 40, remembering stuff, you don't care no more. Um, So our first character is Michaela, or Kiki, as they called her. And she was like the cult leader. I don't care what anybody say, they were in a cult. That's what was going on. That's what it was. And she was ethereal, and she commanded the room when she walked in. She was wrapped in wealth. She literally embodies the queen bee socialite, whose power is magnetic and all of that. But underneath, you can tell that she was masking some serious, serious wounds underneath all of that, right? And then we have what I call the transformed outsider, which is Simone, and she was the younger sister of Devin, and she was Kiki's personal assistant, right? But this girl was seriously seduced by glamour. Okay, she became this devoted, almost creepy ass assistant, but she still illustrated the innocence that you have and how you can get pulled in to cults, actually, honestly. And not just cults, but any type of group think, any type of life or dream life promise that people can make, especially if it really, really speaks to the transformation that you want to make. Like, she wanted to transform her whole life. She had a lot of secrets. So it's like, okay, sirens, y'all got secrets? I know I have lots of secrets, right? Um, but we see her almost later on towards the end, like we almost see her morph into her own version of Kiki, which was very, very frightening for me. I see how it can be like, okay, good for you, girl. You got your power back. But also it was like, wait a minute, that don't really feel right. So then we have the protector, or the vigilante, and that's Devin, and she was Simone's older sister. Grounded, working class, caregiving, yet very combustible. Like, she's the heroine, but she's forced to, confront the elite and also save her sister. But in that, also discovering herself and saving herself, right? Very beautiful. All of the women had a magnetic draw and pull to them, which was one thing that really caught my attention. And I'm like, okay, they got that part right, right? So together, the show, it gives you your villains, your victim, your hero, all the Rolodexes that blur, right? As the story reveals how each woman carries their pain and trauma and just really misunderstood power. Does that sound familiar to some of y'all? And so it made me question, like, are they really empowered, or are they still performing for the Malay gaze? Like, what is it? So these characters aren't wearing their power outright, right? But they're shaped by how others see them. So Kiki, the leader, she's all about her image and how people perceive her, and making sure that she maintains a certain image, a certain decorum about herself, a certain air, and she has a reputation that she wants to live up to. Then we see Simone, she's, worrying about how Kiki sees her. She wants to be a mini Kiki. And then the sister, even though it feels like she doesn't care how she's seen or viewed, she really does. And we see that unfold more as the show progresses. Okay, so let's talk about Michaela's power, right? So it really hinged on her curated image. She had everything about herself perfectly manicured down to a science, right? The necklaces, the birth, the sanctuary rituals, the aviary, and it all reflected like this privilege masquerading as mystique type vibe, honestly, to me. And then Simone's allure is really nurtured, within a high society cult, and she's performing the roles that's scripted by the elite. So she's giving what she thinks the elite wants and what they are. And so she's trying to emulate that. She's trying to do all the things that she see Kiki doing. Does that sound familiar? How many times have we tried to emulate what we wanted to become? And that's not always a bad thing, but you have to do it the right way. You have to know how to do it, right? And then we have Devin, who is a complete rebel. And her rebellion feels very, very real. If you've been with us for a little bit, you know that we just completed not too long ago the Red Lip Rebellion. And she embodies a siren who is all about the rebellion, okay, with a devastating red lip. Love that for her. But the storyline still filters through, the lens of emotional chaos, not really embody sovereignty, because she's all over the place. She's doing the most with these men. She's just busting into the rooms and doing this and that. That's not how you want to embody that power, right? So for everybody is in a performance of power, basically, and they're not fully embodying their feminine agency. So the next question for me as I'm watching this is beauty used as a weapon, as a disguise, or as a tool for healing? So let's go through the characters again with this question. Weapon and disguise dominate for all three of these characters, actually. So Michaela, she weaponizes her beauty with those rituals, and she's just manipulating everybody around her. Every single person she manipulates, and it's through rituals and presentations. And her look is a armor, and her presence is a veil, which are things that we strive for, but everything needs to be balanced, right? The world is about balance, and Michaela didn't really have that balance. And some people, it felt to me like some of them, they was afraid of her ass. Like, they were like, oh my God, here she comes. But you don't really want that. You don't want to be manipulative in that kind of way where people are afraid of you. Then we have Simone, and she embodies the disguise. So, she's altered by fashion and names and environment. But for her, it's all for survival, because she wants to survive in this elite atmosphere when she knows what her past really is. So she is the perfect visual for imposter syndrome. And I know a lot of the women that I come across tell me that they feel like imposters in their own lives. So we see that come to life with Simone's character. And then we have Devin, who she's just rejecting all that beauty culture, but her raw presence is still framed through shame and not healing. That girl needed some healing, okay? And healing is such a trigger buzzword, but for her, there was no other word. That's what it is. She needed healing. Now, what was missing from that was beauty as a ritual for transformation. They were using it for manipulation. Even Devin, she used her beauty to manipulate men. She knew she was gorgeous. She knew these men would sleep with her, and then she knew she could do whatever she wanted with that, right? But despite the performance heavy portrayal of power, Sirens really, it threads in, there were subtle, sometimes fragmented moments where feminine leadership was present, softness and sisterhood. You can see that peek through, the cracks in different moments. And that's what make it really, really, really good watch and a really good depiction of a siren. So a lot of the scenes where we saw the staff not really caring for Simone, but loving Devin. So she's able to weave in and out of the different worlds. And to me, that makes a perfect siren, minus all the rest of the mess that was wrong with her, right? Okay, so let's get into the sacred feminine aesthetic, even if it's distorted, because that's what this was giving us. And I think that's what people perceive a siren to be. It's the sacred feminine aesthetic. However, it's distorted. How they portray sirens and what they say about sirens. And maybe at some point in time, that version of a siren was true and was real. But now we have to reframe that for ourselves. So Michaela's environment is drenched in ritual and sensual detail and spiritual symbolism, which I really, really love. Like you had the birds in the gilded cages, you had the flowing gowns, which is like, yes, come on, bring it to us, Michaela, right? Then you had the ceremonial jewelry and the mind body healing practices for the elite, which is something that we don't really get into and talk about. But when you are in that type of environment, the things that you have access to is totally different. When I was still married to my first husband, he still is a very public figure, and we were in very elite circles. And some of the things that they have access to, that I guess what you would call and I just for sake of argument, the non-elites versus the elites, what they have access to is so much more and so much different and better and greater. And we don't even know. And it's simply because they are the elite. And so one of my goals, one of the things that I strive for, is to be able to bring that type of healing, those type of rituals, that type of access to regular badasses. That's the goal, right? So, even though it's curated and it's performative, they really are hungering for something deeper. Each one of the ladies were. Um, when you reach for ritual, like Michaela did, it's like she was reaching for it. She was going through the steps, but something was missing, right? And so when we're inside of the sanctum, that's where we take those rituals and we really learn how to embody it. We really learn how to put it to use, how to put the power behind it so that it works. And that it's not just something for show, like what Michaela was doing. And also, let me tell you how powerful this was. When she would go and she would start her cult activities. I don't even know what to call it, when they had their little opening meetings or whatever. And she would be like, hey, I started saying that. And it wasn't on purpose. I just started being, I started answering the phone like, hey. If I saw somebody, I'd be like, hey. That's how easy that you can get wrapped up in the energy of a siren. And she wasn't even a real person. She was just a character. So could you imagine being in front of somebody who had that type of zhuzh? You got to be careful. Okay, so number two, the second thing I noticed was the sisterhood. That's very important. The fracture dynamic between Devin and Simone, it really points to a deeper truth that there's a yearning for women to reclaim each other. There's a real need for sisterhood. It sounds cute and it sounds cliche-ish, like, hey sis, we've been saying that for years. But where is the real true sisterhood? I remember when I was going through, I won't name the organization, but I was going through their process to become a member. And one of the things that they talk about so heavy is sisterhood, this sisterhood, that, da 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 da. But the things that they were asking us to do, I don't have sisters. I don't have blood sisters. I have love sisters. I was like, this not what sisterhood looks like. That's not how I want a sisterhood to be. It was really mean girl stuff. And so some of us, we get together and we're gonna have these sisterhood empowerment girl power brunches and lunches, but we sitting up there being mean to each other and not being very sisterly at all. We are talking shit about each other, we're plotting on stealing each other's men, we are doing things that does not promote a healthy sisterhood. The tension, the jealousy, the misunderstanding. And we saw all of that with Simone and Devin. And but for them, because they were blood sisters, and you can tell that at one point they were very close and they had a really close relationship, you can see that buried loyalty underneath there. Even with Simone, even though she was trying to make sure she secured her spot over here in the world with these crazies, she also recognize, like, this is my sister, this is the person that knows me, knows all the secrets. And we see, what I love is that we see Devin never ever gave up on Simone. She was like, no, I gotta save my sister, fuck this, these people are nuts, let me get my sister out of here. No matter how much that girl hurt her, no matter how mean she was to her, she didn't care. She was like, no, that's my sister, I'm getting out of here. And then Simone, even in her confusion, she still would seek safety, inside of her sister's love. And to me, that tracks for me, that a sisterhood would look like that. When we crave sisterhood, but we've been conditioned to perform for men or compete for each other, that's when spaces like the Badass Sanctum is so necessary. One of the things I really, really, really can't stand is when we are put in situations where we have to compete with one another, where we're compared to one another, where we're in triangulation with each other, and especially when it's at the hands of a man. It's just something about it that grinds my gears. I don't like it. And we need to recognize when that's happening. Recognize it and stop it. Don't let anybody put you in an atmosphere of competition with another woman. Never. Now, let's talk about softness as power. Almost. So there was a couple of moments where the characters dropped their mask, right, and got real and got soft, like when we saw Simone letting herself cry in Devin's arms, or Michaela revealing her grief behind her obsession with control, because that lady was really obsessed with controlling every single tiny detail. And that's some of us. That's a lesson. That's a warning of caution for some of us. Stop trying to control every single detail of your life, because when you don't surrender to source, when you don't surrender to the divine, you are going to blow up your life. And that's what happened with Michaela. She ended up blowing up her life. And then we even saw Devin drop her mask when, she was still showing tenderness, even though she was enraged. And then the show doesn't really fully develop this, but it hints at a powerful truth that softness is not weakness. And this is something that I preach all the time. It's really a gateway to transformation. Softness is really power. If you know how to work it and you know how to wield it, it can be a really powerful tool. Okay. So Netflix's version of Sirens, it definitely flirted with the idea of feminine power, but couldn't fully trust it, right? So they gave us glimpses of beauty and ritual and sisterhood, but then they tied them to control and illusion. So it makes me think, like, is this how people see Sirens, and is this how I'm showing up in the world? And ask yourself, is this how you're showing up in the world? Let me know in the chat what you think about that. Let's see. Let's go on to talk about how, Netflix, they showed us women performing power, and it was wrapped up in currencies like beauty and obedience and ritual and control, all of the things, right? But what if beauty was reframed as a tool for healing and not a tool for survival, like we saw Devin use it? One of the things inside the society is that the Sanctum Sirens, we don't do no performing. We don't do all that, right? But what we do is, what I do as the leader is I help you remember. I just help you remember. Remember who you are. Remember your softness. Remember your power. Remember your beauty, and show you how to use it as medicine, right? And we don't disguise. We transmute. We're not hiding no more. We're not putting on a mask anymore. For what? We don't have to do that. But I teach you how to transmute that. And then, beauty is our altar, no longer our armor. I don't know if you've ever had to use beauty as an armor before. And again, I go back to Devin, and even Michaela used her beauty as an armor. She wanted to make sure that all you saw was the beauty, the ritual, the da 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 da, and not really what was underneath all that. Okay, so I want to do a little comparison. I should have put this on like a chart or whatever, but anyway, y'all can keep up. Just keep up. Okay, so we're gonna compare the old Siren, which we saw on Netflix, versus the Sanctum Siren, which is who you become in the private society. Okay, so the old Siren seduces to survive, and the Sanctum Siren, we attract from healed self-worth. The old one is disconnected from sisterhood. Boo. Sanctum Siren, we rise within sacred sisterhood. The old Siren uses beauty as bait, but we use beauty as ritual and remembrance. They thought that power equaled control. Over here with the Sanctum Sirens, we say power equals embodiment of presence. They use their voices to manipulate. We use our voice to activate destiny. And that's a powerful, powerful difference between. I was talking to one of my clients, and we were talking about, actually, she is a siren. Shout out to you, D. And we were talking about manipulation versus activating your destiny. And it's two different things, and they're very real things, that show up in the world. And so many people think that you need to manipulate to get what you want. But that's not true. What you really need to do is learn how to transmute, transform, and activate your own destiny. That's what you really need to do. Okay, let's keep going. Where was I? All right. Okay, we talked about the differences. Now, okay, let's get into the role of beauty as reprogramming and not performance. Like, the world likes to just keep telling us beauty is about a big performance and altering how you look and, that whole thing. So they teach us that beauty is a mask, it's a hustle. They talk about the hook and decoration. But for us, Sanctum Sirens, yes, no manipulation, right? Hey, Deanna. But for us, beauty is a technology, okay? And I want you to follow me with this. It's a ritual of remembrance. And if you really know about rituals and how to put together a ritual, then you would understand it as a technology. If that's something you want to learn more about, follow me over at Only One's Okay. Okay. And so it's how we code the nervous system. There are so many tools and modalities to help with the nervous system, but they always leave out beauty. That's why I start with beauty first, because I understand that it is a powerful modality um, for us to have. It's a really excellent ritual technology for us to have. So when we use beauty for remembrance and recalibration, that's how we can code our nervous system, to be at ease, for power, for visibility, but all on our own terms, right? And we teach our bodies that it's safe to be seen, that we can reclaim our sexuality without apology. And then we mirror back to the soul what it forgets underneath the trauma, underneath the shame and the disconnection. We get to remember what's really there, and what was sacred to begin with that they made us think was not. In a world where beauty is used to manipulate, we really use it to remember. And I want you guys to remember. If you don't remember nothing else about this, remember that. And when you put beauty first as a technology, it isn't vanity, it then becomes a vibrational architecture. So let's talk about the distinction between being magnetic for attention versus magnetic for destiny. Okay. When you're magnetic for attention, it's like, oh, look at me. It's built on dopamine, how many likes you get, how many people in your DMs, or, drama and desirability. And it often leads to being consumed, copied, and discarded. And that's the truth. But when you use being magnetic for destiny, it's like, come closer, but only if you're aligned, right? It's built on embodiment and depth and divine design. It leads to legacy and leadership and soul anchored opportunities. So you don't pull people in to feed on your energy. We don't want to do that. You want to draw in who's meant to be a part of your evolution, though. That is what you want to do. So, Sanctum Sirens, baby, we don't chase, we don't prove, we don't perform, but we calibrate. We calibrate and we align our destinies to our realities. And we bring forth the frequency so that we can see it right here, right now, on this level, on this consciousness in this time frame, right? And then we get what we deserve. Hold on one second. So, watching this show really gave me a lot of insight about how the world sees us as sirens, and even how we may have shown up in the past as a siren. And if you felt any of this, if any of this resonated with you, and you're ready to really do the work to become a sanctum siren and no longer an unhealed siren, I definitely want to invite you to join our society, the Badass Sanctum, at the Badass Universe, where you can learn more about it, and just get into a real sisterhood where we not over there hating, we ain't being jealous, we're not, being weird with each other. We're just all going through our processes to get to our next level. We're becoming unstuck. We're doing the work, and we're getting to the next chapter, whatever that looks like. If it's that business, if it's the next level in your income and finances, if it's a new relationship that you want to show up as the best version of yourself, that's where we're over there doing the work. Okay. So I look forward to seeing you all inside of my sanctum. Let me know in the comments if you watched Sirens and what you thought about it. Okay. So I'll see you guys next time. Bye.